It's that time of the week once again. It's overdress news time. So we got a bunch more overdress announcements this week as well. Once again, of course, this is week 3 of the 9-week sort of concurrent, consecutive, whatever, streak of overdress news leading up to the release of the first starter decks. So today they actually gave us a surprise that they're going to be giving us information on the first starter deck, and we definitely did get quite a lot of that. First things first, for the Zero folks, we get a new seasonal event, this time for White Day, but for Valentine's Day instead, which is featuring a really good looking Kote skin as well as a Chris skin as well. So I'm definitely excited for this. You know, Kote getting a skin, a second event skin already is really cool, and I guess for the Great Nature people as well, having an event skin finally is also definitely quite nice. Then in terms of TCG news, before overdress of course, we got clan selection reveals, and this time it's Valios. And before I even talk about the card, man, I've been playtesting clan selection myself, like in both standard and premium. This set is so fun. It actually makes standard so much fun as well. Like honestly, these decks have been such a just joy to play for me. They all feel like quite similar in power level. I mean, for the most part, you know, there's ethics that's kind of like zoom, but for the most part, they feel very similar in power level and really fun and flavorful, and it's honestly just really great. But Valios does the following. First things first, once per turn, Vanguard Circle can almost 1 Soul Blast 1 and make your opponent's Vanguard lose 5k power, and if they're on grade 3 or higher, then they cannot gain any power for that turn outside of by guarding. So basically, if they take a trigger in the damage, it doesn't gain that power on the Vanguard. They have to give it to the rear guard, for example. So that skill is already basically Valios incarnate. Then the second skill is Vanguard Circle once per turn, discard a card with the same name as your Vanguard. So literally ultimate stride to remove all markers from your own circles. So if you owned any Axel circles beforehand from other grade 3s, remove all markers from your circles and then revive 5 cards from your drop zone. So call them on rearguard circles. So this is basically Megiddo, but that's not it. His final skill says Vanguard Circle once per turn. At the end of the battle of one of your units, you can choose 2 rear guards and change their positions. So this is basically Megiddo Light for standard. So you lock their power, you get to revive 5 things. He does not have a gift marker himself, so there will be no Axel shenanigans here either. And you basically just get to Megiddo your opponent for, you know, paying the same cost as your Vanguard and losing your G-Zone if you lose, except you don't, so you can do it again next turn. So this is really cool, very flavorful, very cool overall, and you can do like 7 attack combos I think they showed on the stream already. And so the fact that your opponent doesn't gain power from defensives actually I think makes this pretty damn cool. So even I'm excited to playtest this in the coming weeks, because this set comes out in Japanese in just 2 weeks, so we'll be able to playtest all the Clan Selection 2 stuff very soon. Now for the overdress part. So this one, before we get into the overdress news itself, they announced a lot of 10th anniversary merch, and honestly, I need so much of this. Like, first things first, here are some acrylic stands. So these acrylic stands basically cost 15 bucks a piece, and they come with like, basically there's like 16 different types, and you can buy whichever one you want. These will be sold in Sega as well as Animate stores. Maybe we can get them online. If not, then there surely will be a way to find them online, because they're only available for a certain period. If I'm not mistaken, I think they're only available from the 26th of February to the 21st of March. So yeah, gotta hurry up and get these. Then going forward, they gave us these huge like they're not wall scrolls, they're posters that like span the entire wall. So if you're really dedicated to one of these characters like Chrono or Ibuki, you can cover your entire walls with just Ibuki, for example. They gave us can badges of all 16 characters. Of course, they're all looking very amazing. We got this little stand frames. These are acrylic stand frames. They look really nice actually. They're quite small, but they're 10 bucks a pop, and you can see all these different designs ranging from MLB to Gavriel to Chaos Breaker and Isabel. So basically every clan gets some representation. Some of them get more than one, as you can see with Luard and Mordred, for example. So of course it's very cool as well. There's also a hoodie with a critical symbol on it, so if you want to check crits more consistently, then please buy this hoodie. And also a denim tote bag if you want to also sport some more Vanguard merch, as well as a stainless cup that will finally potentially replace my cup that I always drink Strongs from on my Thursday streams, so that's also nice. Then the Zero first anniversary acrylic or like designs come in acrylic as well, so that's also quite cool. And so they of course also showed off everything kind of like in person, how it looks, because this does release really soon. So I'm personally looking to pick up quite a lot of these things, because especially once I move, it'll be nice to have like a backdrop with like little shelves over here and like put a bunch of this stuff behind me. I think that'll be a really nice backdrop for the videos as well. So gonna try to pick some of these things up to have that kind of backdrop going forward. All right, so the news that made quite a few people in the community pop off is the fact that Yu is indeed forced into cross-dressing by his sister. They kind of said that in the synopsis, that his sister forces him into a hobby that he's not particularly too fond of, I guess. But so yes, that is indeed, I've heard the community talking about it a lot, but please do be respectful when talking about these kind of things. It'll be interesting how they picture it in the anime. We already saw a lot of it in the promotional video. Then Bluish Flame's Prominence Glare will also be printed as a promo for the Vanguard Turnabout manga, so this will be pretty cool. It is going to be usable in both V Standard or V Premium as well as regular Premium, so V Premium can use the new Bluish Flame card, so we can have both Percival and Prominence Glare. So the whole Bluish Flame squad is slowly gathering, so that is definitely quite nice as well. Then we got more information for the Token Rambu set coming to the overdress standard. So we now know that the trial decks will be releasing on the 22nd of May, retailing about 16 bucks. So they're not like the start decks that we get. These are actual like full-on trial decks. And so those release on the 22nd of May in Japanese together with the booster set, and we can kind of see everything here going on. So apparently they're going to have like special rarities and foilings, and they're going to feature characters released up to the game's like December patch. So if you don't know, Token Rambu is actually an online game that you actually like play on the PC, so it's going to have characters in it leading up to, I think 92 different characters, I think they said, leading up to the December update in 2020, so it'll be pretty cool. And we also saw these really cool Token Rambu rares, which actually show like the names, the grades, like drawn in like actually written in kanji and everything, and so that kind of like, and it shows this really cool like frameless border, and everything is just like, it's so damn nice. Like these designs are actually amazing. And now this is, the whole reason why you came here probably, quite a few minutes in already, but they revealed basically the card powers of some cards. They basically gave us 6 cards per starter deck because they all kind of connect into one big artwork. So no, this is not Legion, these are just connecting artworks, and I think that is very cool. So for example, let me show you this one. So this is the Dragon Empire one from the UU starter deck, and here you can see the grade 2 has 5k shield and 10k power, so basically like a force grade 2. The grade 3 has 13k power with no shield, like a force grade 3, and the grade 1 has 8k power but 5k shield, so the shield power has been reduced. In the V series it was 10k shield, now it's 5k. Then we see the heal trigger here, 15k shield instead of 20, but the crit kept the 15k shield. The one thing that stayed from the V series that people are particularly not happy with is the fact that the triggers have plus 10,000 power again. So a lot of us were really hoping that they would go back to plus 5k triggers because those feel less impactful, because that way the trigger effect, like critical or draw, feels more impactful than the actual power. But like, if you don't know already, like the problems with 10k trigger power is that, especially looking at this, right, if these skills don't have power-up skills, and so just take like the grade 2 and the grade 1, 18k power, your opponent checks 1 defensive, that's it. That column doesn't hit the Vanguard anymore. That was never really the case with the 5k triggers, because if you had a 16k column, it could still hit even over 1 defensive trigger. So that's kind of the problem that people are really not too happy about, that they made that. What some people are saying is that because they reduced the shield power of the heals, people are kind of hoping, this hasn't been confirmed or anything, but people, myself included, are hoping that the triggers have skills. Just like they did before the V series, all the triggers used to have like all kinds of skills that would do certain things, whether defensively or, on the field and stuff like that. So we're really hoping that maybe they put more defensive abilities on the triggers. I think that would be really cool, but we're gonna find out and see. I mean, hopefully they do more with this, because right now, like 10k power triggers just already make it feel a little bit and it's just like, when triggers matter that much, it's like a domino effect. If the triggers are 10k, that means they have to print a bunch of like plus 5k, plus 10k effects into the actual deck, because that way they can get over the defensive triggers. But if they do that, then we kind of risk going into the power creep of the V era. So they have to kind of avoid that. So we also want more defensive mechanics. So why did the power reduce? We're all really asking for defensive mechanics, but grade 1s went from 10k shield to 5k shield, heals went from 20 to 15, so people are definitely not too happy about that. Some people are hoping that the draws will be 10k shield, which would be nice, but I'm not getting my hopes up too much. But overall, I'm happy that all the different nations have like 10k base power for grade 2s, 13k for grade 3s. I think that's a good standard to stay to. They don't do like discrepancy with like Axial Force and Protect. It's nice that it is going to be one same power. Then of course it did show us other arts and names of cards in other nations. So for example, Danji starter deck, we have the units from the Dark States. So for example, we see that the grade 2 over there is called Violence Richard. Then of course the grade 3 is Violence Bruce, and the grade 1 on the right is Violence Steve. So Steve makes a return. The heal trigger is called Ariana, and the starter is called Violence Matt. and then also the crit is called Mai Mai. So it's also cool how you can see like Violence Bruce's, the grade 3's like leg sticking out in the starters, like at the top of the starters art. So I think that those little details are really cool, and this art in particular is probably my favorite. It looks absolutely amazing, like the effects and like the details on everything just looks so fantastic. Then moving forward, we have the Keter Sanctuary, of course. Keter Sanctuary is also really nice looking, looks very Royal Paladin like, kind of like royal and gold mixture. So we can kind of see the grade 2 here is called Rux, so Lux maybe. Then of course Bastion as our grade 3. The grade 1 on the right is Photo, so Photo maybe, something like that. Then the heal is called Ashes, so it's like maybe Aethys, something like that. I think the starter is either Pace or Base, so that's going to be, you know, Base as a name is pretty good. And then the critical trigger is called Gurukanto, so Gurkant, something like that. I also really like the little bordering. You can see here on the Keter Sanctuary, like the yellow border around the name box, and then like the purple, like normal unit really fits with the aesthetic of the other cards being like kind of yellow and like bright, as well as this like dark blue purplish color as well. Then for Stoicheia, we can see the sort of great nature looking units. So the grade 2 on the left is called Ratis or Lattice, then Magnolia is the grade 3, and then the Bulbalax that we've been calling so far is called Karis, so Caliph, something like that. Then the heal trigger is called Zuratoroku, so like Zuratork maybe, something like that. The grade 0 is called Rote, so that's the kind of cat-looking starter, and then the critical trigger is called Jackalope, so just Jackalope, or Jackalope is kind of how it's written, but I'm assuming it's going to be kind of like Jackalope. So that's the Stoicheia units. And then finally, Best Nation Brancate, we have the basically kind of like a Super Sentai theme. So we have Risat Pink on the grade 2 on the left, then of course Saras White is our grade 3, and then the Kiruna Blue is the grade 1. So these, you know, they're kind of named after their colors, like pink, white, blue. The heal trigger is called Torushu Green. The starter is Rupee Red, and the crit is called Rurus Yellow. So they're all kind of called after their colors. So kind of like Super Sentai, basically, you know, like Power Rangers and stuff like that. So it's a cool little aesthetic. You know, I'm personally still waiting for the Robos, but Tomari is best girl, and therefore we will be playing this deck for sure. And then we got more information about the Festival Collection. So Festival Collection, if you don't know, is like a yearly set that they usually release around the big Bushiroad Festival that happens once a year in May, and it usually has its own set to go with it. So this year it's Festival Collection 2021. So what is Festival Collection? You can see here the artwork. We have 3 new units here, what looks to be Dark States on the left, Dragon Empire in the middle, and Keter Sanctuary on the right. And so of course it has support for all 5 nations. So what is actually in the set? What is in the set is actually all cards being in triple rare, and 1 box having 10 packs, and each pack having 3 cards. Each pack will have 2 reprints and 1 new card, because there's a total of 55 different cards, so basically 11 per nation, and 45 cards will be reprints while 10 will be new ones. And so why are there so many reprints? Well, that's because 9 different cards from each starter deck will be chosen and printed in triple rare foiling, so you can have like a max rarity deck with your starter deck cards. So it's kind of like basically like reprinting the starter decks, and some people don't like that too much, but at the same time it's nice because you can have like a nice bling bling deck, because the starter decks only have 1 triple rare, and that's the grade 3. It also says that 1 box will have 1 of each of the 10 new cards, because there's 10 new cards, so each nation will get 2, and that is definitely very nice because you immediately get, like, you can buy 4 boxes of this and you will have the 10 new cards, like 4 of each basically. So you can just get together with some friends, together buy 4 boxes and just like trade for whichever nations you want. So, you know, 5 friends pulling in with 4 boxes, and you get like whoever needs whichever nation gets their stuff. So that's definitely very nice. So it's like, this is normal for us. Like Festival Collection is just a normal thing, like just like Fighters Collection, so it is quite normal. And so again, they kind of mentioned that the trial deck art, so like that we saw from earlier, will be getting kind of SP illustrations, so that will be pretty exciting as well. And then of course merch, more merch. In case you haven't seen enough merch for today, we got deck boxes of basically all the characters, so you're gonna see me rocking about 10 of these Tomari deck boxes here. Then we have sleeves for each of the grade 3 boss units from the starter deck, so that's also very nice. I actually like the Violence Bruce one a lot. The more I see Violence Bruce, the more I like him for whatever reason. And finally, at the end of it all, we got a new over trigger reveal. So this is our first actual like skill reveal for something in the first booster set. So this is the Dragon Empire over trigger called Drag Veda, I think is what it's called. So what does this overtrigger do? Quite simple. It simply says that when you check it, it does the usual overtrigger thing, so give something plus 100 million, draw 1, and banish itself. However, the other overtrigger effect that it has, just for Dragon Empire, is the ability to stand your Vanguard. So this feels very Kagero-esque above all else, but you know, it is Dragon Empire, and Kagero definitely represents Dragon Empire for the most part. But it's interesting because this skill, you know, of course, over triggers are 1 per deck, so it's not like you can play 4 of these, but basically, like, if you check it on offense, of course it's really strong because you get to attack with your Vanguard again, but checked on defense, it's kind of whatever, right? Because you check it on a damage check, and you just stand your resting Vanguard. It's not like you can attack with it again or anything, so it's pretty cool. I personally think that it's quite nice because it doesn't feel like it's over the top or anything. Like, of course, attacking with the Vanguard is huge again, but it's not like a bunch of decks won't already have those kind of abilities, so I think it's not really that big of a deal, but it's pretty cool. I'm more curious to see what they're going to do with the other nations with their over triggers as well. This one does feel a bit like simple, but at the same time, like, representative of at least, well, Kagero, I guess. But yeah, and that's basically it. So next week we're gonna get Angelica from Client Selection, so that's gonna be for Genesis, and then also we're gonna get more merch from this 10th anniversary shop information that we saw earlier today, and we're gonna find out the gimmick of Yuyu's starter deck, so the Dragon Empire deck. We will know the gimmick. I don't think that means we're gonna see the Grade 3 boss units effects, but at least we'll know sort of what the deck does and what kind of like effect styles it'll have. But they're definitely dragging this out quite a lot rather than just revealing the card effects. So it's interesting, it keeps the hype going, so that's pretty important. But before I tune out, you know, my thoughts, I think the most important thing to talk about here is like the overtrigger is cool and whatever, but for me the biggest thing is like the trigger power and the defensive shield power. Like reducing the grade 1 shield power and the heal triggers down to 20, from 20k to 15, feels a little bit weird considering that they kept the 10k power of the triggers. People thought that they would be reducing the defensive power in exchange for reducing the trigger power back down to 5k. I understand keeping 10k because otherwise, like, if they're 5k, who's going to play them in premium, right? Like, it's going to be great for standard, but then who's going to play them in premium? Whereas now you still want to play these new ones in premium, especially if they have effect on them. But I just really hope that they let themselves be creative even from the starter decks. Like, it's fine to put effect on triggers. We've had that from the first ever booster set of the game. Like, Leo already had an effect, you know, it was a critical with an effect. Lozenge Magus was a heal with an effect, you know? Things like that have existed from the very start of the game, and I don't see why we need to go back to vanilla triggers when it just feels so unnecessary, honestly. Like, above all else, it feels like we can definitely get away with triggers with effects already from the very first starter decks. And so please, 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 if you're gonna be doing this kind of like keeping the 10k power triggers but then reducing shield numbers, at least give us some kind of either defensive mechanic with blitz orders, or give us some kind of skills on these triggers to make them, you know, guard for more or do something else, or like any other kind of effects that we can do on the opponent's turn as well, because that kind of interactivity is what makes it really fun to actually like have a say in what you do in your opponent's turn as well, without necessarily saying, oh, negate this, negate that, you know, as some other games do. Anyway, I've kept y'all for long enough. This was a good summary of all the information that we got, as well as sort of my thoughts on the matter. So obviously, you know, I do find a little bit problematic that we're staying with 10k triggers because of what I talked about with power lines and everything, and having to print these simple as hell effects of just like gain power, which nobody really likes. We want to see more cool, like, creative effects of like doing stuff like how Client Selection has, without necessarily going like, oh, plus 10k to front row, plus 10k to front row, you know? Sure, the Persona ride will kind of help to alleviate the sort of like extra plus 10k from these defensive triggers, but even then it just feels like, I don't know. It doesn't feel as good as it should, and I feel like I've been playing, like, going back to playing G-era format lately with like 5k triggers, and it feels so great there because the trigger effect, like a critical, feels way more impactful than the 5k power, whereas with V triggers, it's the 10k that feels like much more impactful than the actual trigger effect, or like they're basically like on the same level. Whereas like it was nicer when the extra 5k didn't matter that much. Like it was easier, it was still easy enough to guard, and that extra 5k didn't necessarily change that much. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comments below. So all the different news, all the merch, and all that kind of stuff, as well as what you think about, you know, the actual shield powers and trigger powers. I think that one is definitely the most kind of controversial thing that they've done so far, but hopefully there are good sides to it, and hopefully, you know, the triggers and stuff have effects, and we don't have to just like cry at 10k power triggers. So we're gonna find out soon. You know, we're barely a month and a half away from the Star Decks releasing, so we're gonna be able to playtest overdress very, very soon. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.